Okay, so talking about congruent triangles. Congruent triangles are triangles that are the same shape and size. All right, each triangle has 3 blank and 3 blank. Very simple stuff there. What do you think that is? It has 3 angles and 3 sides, obviously. Okay, if all the parts of the corresponding parts of 2 triangles are congruent, then the triangles themselves are congruent. So if each individual piece is congruent, then the whole triangles are congruent to each other. They're exactly the same. Okay, so that's exactly what's going on here in this first one. So the first thing I'm going to do is talk about the congruent triangles. So triangle ABC is congruent to triangle. Now, the order of the letters is going to matter here because we've got to keep things matched up. So, all right, on triangle A, what matches up to that on the other triangle?
E.
Angle E. So I've got to put E first here to match up to that A. All right, so this E is matching up to this A. Okay, B is next. So what matches up to B?
F.
Is F. And then, so angle C is G. So there you go. Triangle ABC is congruent to triangle EFG. So that's just the overall triangle. Now we're going to talk about the individual pieces. Okay, so angle A is congruent to what angle? It's angle E. How do we know angle A is congruent to angle E? Okay, because A has one little mark, E has one little mark. Okay? So next, angle B is congruent to what angle? Angle F. How do I know B and F are congruent? You have 2 marks on each of those. And then angle C is congruent to what? Angle G. How do I know those angles are congruent? They both have 3 marks inside that angle. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. All right, next is the corresponding congruent sides. Okay, and the order of the letters is going to matter here. So side AB. What's congruent to side AB? EF. Okay, and I know that because there's 1 mark here, there's 1 mark here. All right, BC is congruent to what?
FG.
To FG. I know that because there's 2 marks here, there's 2 marks here. And then AC is congruent to what?
GE.
To EG. Okay, because there's 3 marks here, 3 marks here, and I'm going in the same order. And then on top of all that, really, I didn't even have to look at these triangles. I could have just gone back to this name and seen that A and E match up, B and F match up, C and G match up. Okay, and then same thing on the letters. AB, so AB matches up to EF, BC matches up to FG, and then AC matches up to EG. All right. So 2 triangles are congruent if and only if their corresponding parts are congruent. Okay, and we're going to see this CPCTC sum. All right, so CPCTC is an abbreviation basically of this big long thing right here. Okay, it says corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. Corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. Corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. So if you have 2 triangles that are congruent, the parts, the pieces that correspond between them are going to be congruent to each other also. Corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. Over here on this first page, those right there, it was easy to see. I mean, number one, they were marked, but also they just had them laid in the same orientation, so it's really easy to see that A goes to E, B goes to F. Okay, so I'm going to skip that one on the bottom there. Let's flip it over and look at the back. Thank you. Okay, now, sometimes it's easy to see what matches up to what. But sometimes you're going to have stuff like this, where they have one that's like twisted or rotated from where the other one's at. And so you're going to have to think about, okay, what matches up to what? So just as looking at that, so angle B, what do you think matches up to angle B on that other triangle? Okay? So let's see. So what I did is on that little piece of paper there, the separate little piece of paper, basically what I did is just copied that. So what I want you to do on that separate just little piece of paper is I want you to cut out those two triangles. Okay? And help us to see this better. So cutting out these two triangles right here. Cut them out as nicely and neatly as possible. Okay, so once you get those two triangles cut out, start taking them and like figure out how they can match up exactly. So like lay one on top of the other and spin them around so they like just match up exactly. Got it. Okay, so do they match up like this? Nope, that don't work. They match up like that. Yep, they sure do. I tried to match it like this. That doesn't work either. That doesn't work. This is how they match up right here. Okay? They're exactly the same right here. All right. So now we've got it like that. Now I can see what matches up. So sometimes on these problems, you're going to have to basically do this same thing that we just did with cutting out. You have to do it in your mind. Think about, okay, if I were to cut that out and spin it, how would it make it where they matched up? All right. So, well, most of the time that's not going to work. I guess occasionally you could. So, angle A is congruent to what angle? To angle P. Okay, angle B is congruent to what? Angle N, and then angle C is congruent to what? To angle M. All right, now for the congruent sides. So let's start off with AB. I was going to mark this. So A is congruent to B, B is to N, C is to M. So AB is congruent to what side? Okay, and I've got to be sure I write it in the same order. So AB is to what? To PN. Okay, BC is congruent to what? To NM, and then AC is congruent to to PM. Okay, and now for the overall congruent statement. So triangle ABC is congruent to what? To triangle PNM. Okay. So moving on here real quick. So congruent angles on this next one. Angle A is congruent to what?
X.
To angle X. Angle B is congruent to what?
Y.
Angle Y. And then angle C is congruent to what?
Z.
To angle Z. Okay, for sides, AB is congruent to what? XY. Okay, then side BC is congruent to what? To YZ. And then AC is congruent to XZ. Okay, so for the overall congruent statement, triangle ABC is congruent to triangle XYZ. Okay, then on this last one real quick. So this tells us triangle ITP is congruent to NGO. So again, the order matters here. So I matches to N, T matches to G, and P matches to O. Okay? So the order, it helps us here because we know what matches to what. So I want to find Y. So this angle O that has 6Y minus 14, what angle matches up to that? If I look over here, O matches up to P, and P is 40 degrees, right? So to find Y, I'm just going to set, 6Y minus 14 equal to 40. And then solve for Y. So we would add 14 to both sides. That would zero out. 6Y equals 54 divided by 6. 9. So Y equals 9. All right, now X is right over here on this side, NG. So what side matches up to NG?
TI.
Is to this one, IT right here. So I would do X minus 2Y equals 7.5. There's a little problem there. There's two variables there, but actually I know what Y is. I just found it down there. What does Y equal?
9.
No, so it's X minus 2 times 9 equals 7.5. So that would be X minus 18 equals 7.5. Add 18, this zeroes out, and X equals 25.5.